Welcome back to Monty Friday Art and to a new home. So the reason I haven't posted in a while is because we've just moved house and I've now got a place that I can call my own. And by a place I can call my own, I mean a little studio. The last year or so I've been working on tabletops and all sorts, so I haven't had a dedicated space to do all of my artwork. So it's quite nice and refreshing for me to have somewhere that I can crawl away and hide and do these videos for you. I also hope to be investing in some new sound equipment in the future as well, so that my voice doesn't come across as completely atrocious. So today we're going to be doing a tutorial on shading, blending and those techniques. But before I get into that, I wanted to run through the equipment that I use, because it'd be far easier to show you what pencils are what beforehand, so that I don't keep having to remind myself to tell you as I'm going through. So the first things first, we have 3 mechanical pencils, light, medium and dark. The light one is HB, the purple one is 4B and the dark one is 6B. So whenever you see those on screen, you know which colours I'm using. We have a watercolour monolith, which is 6B. It's the same as the dark one, it's just a bit thicker, so I can cover more ground when I need to. And finally, from the pencils, these are Pierre Noir. There's a HB and a 3B. And then from a blending point of view, we've got the blending sticks, which is just the paper tortillon things I've mentioned previously in tutorials. And also 2 brushes. These are just old watercolour brushes that I've just snipped off with a pair of scissors. They do the job fine. That's the equipment I use. Also, my trusty sellotape. If you haven't seen that tutorial already, I'll link to it below. And a decent pencil sharpener. I know this sounds like an obvious point, but the amount of pencils I ruin because I put up with a crap pencil sharpener, just get a decent one. So this is where I'm up to at the moment. And instead of making this the tutorial, the actual face, the drawing of the face, I thought I'd run that on screen now so you can see how I got to that point. It would have made a good tutorial if you were willing to wait 5 hours, watch 5 hours worth of video. I just thought that was too long, and even though you're editing it down, 5 hours into a couple of minutes is just ridiculous. So this is where I'm up to at the moment. The main thing I need to do at the moment is darken up this area here. A lot of these should almost be as black as that there. You see this dark area. So even though this face looks quite finished, there's actually a huge amount of work that needs to be done on it before I'll be happy with it. So I think what we'll do is we'll sharpen the Pierre Noir. I know a lot of people like to use a craft knife. I prefer just to sharpen using this. It does waste a lot of the pencil, but the sharp tip just disappears so quickly, and a lot of the work that I do is quite detailed, so it's just easier to take the hit on the amount of pencils I use. And I think one of the key things is from light to dark every time. Sometimes I will get carried away and I'll go straight in with a black and I'll regret it immediately. See, what I'm using now is just this thin, it's a tiny brush, probably 4mm across, and I'm able to blend the charcoal pencils quite easily with this. Sometimes it takes a bit of working through. And always referring to my source material as well. Sometimes I'm looking at the source material and not actually looking at the page. See, the light's coming from this side, and the curve of the eyelashes are actually causing a shadow up into the curve of her nose there. You see, I only put a little bit of pencil down, but if you're willing to be patient and work with it, you can make that pencil go a long way. So I'm just bringing this down from this area, just pulling it with the brush. It needs to be a little darker. So this face took me 4 or 5 hours just to get to this point. So this technique isn't a quick technique. I know I've done quick tips before, but with the brushes and the constant switching of pencils, and because it's an A2 drawing as well, you're only seeing a small section of this. It's going to take some time to finish. These Conte pencils, they really do give you an insane amount of dark colour to work with. There's a friend of mine who actually introduced me to them. For years I was working with just 8B pencils, or the watercolour monolith, which we've spoken about, and I just wasn't getting that dark colour. And also when you're placing the colour onto the page, you start to get that shine, and these charcoal pencils they don't give you any of that. They're just an absolute dream to work with. I'm estimating this image to take me about 40 to 50 hours. I'm not going to make you watch all of that, don't worry. I will be doing some live streams in the future as well. I'm new to this game. Like I've got all these ideas in my head, and I want to do some great stuff for you guys, and because I really do appreciate the support. I've been doing it for what, 9-10 months now, and I've got a modest, but which I'm proud of, I think 460 odd, 470 followers, subscribers, and it is appreciated. Art can be quite a lonely thing to do, so it's I appreciate being able to share my passion. So I'm barely using pencils. I'm just using the brush just to move the colour around. It's up to you when you feel like you've got the right balance of colours, the right tones. But it can be really difficult to move on from an area. You can sometimes overwork it. What I also like using, the reason I like using the brush a lot as well, is it blends the lines together. Certainly within faces, you never get a stark contrasting line, or very rarely. Although that looks quite sharp, it's actually quite blended, quite rounded. And I've allowed the shadow to bleed into the white a bit. You very rarely get a definitive line, and the brush helps as well. No, I'm immediately regretting doing that, so we're going to have to go in with the rubber. So occasionally I'll use this, which is just a mechanical eraser. I think you get them from Hobbycraft, though you can get them from anywhere. I'm not promoting. There's still some of that light shining through. We didn't want to get rid of all of it. I think we'll move on to the bottom of of the lips. No, we need to go darker. Right. Darker still. I might as well stick with the 3B. This is blatantly going to turn into just a charcoal drawing. Right, where are we? I'm liking the improvements on this already. I started drawing this about a month ago, and I wanted to share it with you, but then, as I've already said, we were moving house. So I never really got the chance, and I'm kind of glad I left it because I'm already seeing things that I want to change. Like the dark shadow just under the bottom of the lip, that wasn't there before. I think that really it gives the lips some depth. And this small shadow here, I'd completely ignored. Yeah, this is looking better. Right. Okay, there is a small... So just bridging those two shapes has created the shape of the nose there. Sellotape. You've seen this tutorial. If not, the link is below. If you're not going to watch the tutorial, please remember to just rub it on your jeans beforehand, or whatever you've got to hand, because you don't want it sticking. There we go. And all it does is it just picks out the creases and highlights of a lip. It works really well with lips, I find. And you don't need to be too precise either. A little more this side. If you take too much off, so you might take a bit too much off when you're pressing the pencil on, you can just get the brush and gently work it back in. It'll soften up for you. And to be honest, you can do that with all of them. Just removes the harsh line a bit. Okay, let's move on to the chin. You should really have a piece of paper here, in whichever hand you use, left or right, so that you're not smudging, but I can't be bothered to get up now. So if it smudges, it smudges. Although I've got my reference material, I try to draw what I know rather than what I see. Some things don't translate to a drawing very well. It's alright when you're looking at a photograph because you can see that it's a photograph. You don't question what you're looking at, but when you're looking at a drawing, you want to remove items that might jar with the eye. So I want to bring the shadow down, but I want to leave some of just a tiny amount of the chin visible underneath. You think the light's here, it's going to be travelling around that curve. So although this is dark, There is still some light creeping round. This needs to be so much darker. I'm going to switch to the 3B. Right. And I'm barely touching the paper with this. All of this I could completely remove if I wanted to. Every single element of that could be completely rubbed out and reworked. But if you go in too hard, then you're just going to ruin your paper and your drawing. Right, let's blend. I'm going to use the bigger brush to start with. Occasionally what you want to do is you want to clean your brush off, so it'll pick up, over time it will pick up a lot of colour, a lot of the charcoal, a lot of the graphite, and if you suddenly move on to a light area and you want a really soft, smooth blend, you're not going to get that. I want that line to be... This whole area is going to be black. You see I haven't raised any of the grid lines that I was using. It's just going to be completely filled in with black, but what I do need is I need to ensure that this line here is crisp. And we can go darker still. It definitely needs it. Also I think this needs to come... This cheek is all a bit the same. It doesn't feel like the lips are sitting on this at the moment. I think we need to bring the shadow down. That's a little bit better. So I would like to do some of these longer tutorials. I'd like to do more of them. I know they're not to everyone's taste, and I certainly wouldn't expect everyone to sit through them. But what I will do is, once this is finished, I'll upload the full video as a time lapse as well, so you don't have to sit through the whole thing. Now you see, what I've done now is I've created this harsh line. I went too dark too quickly. So I now need to blend that up, because her chin does not slope off into like that. There we go. That's far better. Yeah, so I will upload these into time-lapse videos for you, and I will let you all know when I'm doing live streams as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show, even though it doesn't look like the picture's progressing much, I'll show you the point at which we started versus the end point whenever we decide to call it a day, and you'll be able to see the difference it makes, adding the darkest darks using the piano pencils, and her chin needs more definition. So what we'll do is bring this line almost to this. We don't want to completely join these two up. The necks and chins just don't look like that, is it? It's very easy to just join these two up and expect that, okay, the head sits on the neck, but actually you've got this area here which is immediately curving down into the neck. That's what I'm trying to indicate. So if I put enough shadow underneath, that will give the impression that the chin is a lot further forward than the neck, and her chin isn't just immediately joining, which would look strange, weird. I think what we also need to do is we need to right, let's keep this, work this in. And again, I can't stress enough how much you need to use your brushes. Rely on your brushes as much as possible. You'll get a much more realistic looking effect, unless of course you want the stylized pencil lines showing through. That's also fine. Again, it's finding what works for you. I'm sure you're all starting to understand why this took me 5 hours. I forget who it was who asked me to do some live streams. I will find their name out. And they wanted some longer tutorials as well. Right. The light's coming from, I think we'll there's a slight dimple in her chin as well, ever so slight. I don't really want to draw too much of that in. Although this is going to take me, as I said, about 40, maybe 50 hours. I have got some other videos which I'll be uploading in the new year. But I wanted to get one out before Christmas as a thank you for being patient, and also as a thank you for supporting me and commenting and also critiquing as well. It's all very well to have a thumbs up, and I do appreciate them. I really do appreciate the thumbs up. But a few of you are brave enough to comment and criticise as well, and it is appreciated. There's no point trying to get better at drawing if you're not willing to accept criticism. If you think it's crap, then you think it's crap. If you think it could be improved, tell me. You can't expect to put artwork out there and not expect criticism. And that's why I like YouTube as well, because people are truly honest. I'm not sure if this is showing up well, but the hair comes down here, there's a small gap, and then the hair flows down the back of her shoulder. Well, what I will do is I'll put the shadow in first, because it's the lightest colour. The shadows are usually not as dark as the actual hair. Well, in this case she's got black hair, so in that respect, I mean, the shadows are not going to be as dark. And it also means I can go over them. So the second I make something too dark, I'll put a hair in and I start to try and blend something lighter next to it. I'm going to be pulling that black into the lighter areas, so always light to dark, light to dark. It's okay when you're doing something like this here, or the nostril, because you know it needs to be black, you know there needs to be a slightly more contrasting line. With regards to like blending and this shading technique, you need to build the layers up as much as possible, so even if it takes you an hour to get it right, then that's the time it takes. You've just got to take that hit. What I will say is, when you're erasing out the lines, I'll do it up here so you can see. If you just do this, you're actually leaving some of the eraser on the paper. I can't describe it other than if you try to blend all of that in with a solid colour, a mid-tone, you'll get a line where your rubber's been. So what you want to do is, instead of just doing the line, do the whole square. Takes a bit longer, but I promise you, you don't want lines all through your drawings. It's happened to me on previous videos, you could probably see them. And it took me ages to figure out what was going on. So always do the whole square, and you don't even need to rub the whole thing out. It's just removing some of it, enough so it doesn't show through. So back with the sellotape, and we want to pull out some of the highlights and dimples and things on the skin. It can be as subtle as visible as you want them to be. And of course, if something's got a highlight, it will also have a slight shadow to it. So if the light's coming from this direction, the slight shadow will need to be on the left. Also, it's you can't quite see it on here, but as where the chin comes around here, the shadow will actually follow the curve of the neck. And because it gets further away from the object it's being cast a shadow from, it will get more blurred. So we don't want it to come like that. It's gone under the chin. So it goes under, and then a little further along. Curve back round. And just use your brush to blend. How are we getting on? So I've just had a look at the time, and I'm already up to about 40 minutes, which is insane how quickly that's gone. But we'll do a few more of the shadows, I think, just to ensure we know exactly where the hair is. Let's just draw that. Draw it in. Don't have to fill the whole thing in because we don't want this to pollute the light area, but just enough that we can see it and we can create the shadows off the back of it. So I've already started to do that up here as well. These will eventually need to be fairly dark lines, but they don't need to be too dark for now. See, that gives us the shapes we need to work with now. So we can clearly see this line, and we can work against that as well. So, for example, as we're blending, you make a mistake and go into that line, you've got a reference point that you can safely work against and rub out any mistakes, whilst all the time retaining the shadows on this side. So these are not going to be too dark. It doesn't matter which way you hold the pencil. I tend to hold it different ways. It's more so that depending on whether I'm drawing a curve or my hand seems to work better in different positions. This is just a really light one that's coming to join the larger one there. I'm going to have all of these join up. So what we've got is, this is one bunch of the hair. There's a few gaps in which we can draw in later, but this is the main shape. and this is causing all of these shadows. Move to a lighter one. No, that's the wrong shape. Need it to come down that way. And remember, as it gets closer to the object that's causing the shadow, it will get slightly darker and the lines will get a bit crisper as well. It will eventually join the hair where it sits. I don't know if you can just see that, I think it's just going off the screen there. So you get your light base colour in first, blend. You don't have to be too precise at this point. Make it darker down here. As I say, it's closer to the object causing the shadow, and it will start to fade out. Even though this is quite a dark shadow, I don't think I'll need to use any of the charcoal pencil, which would give me a really dark black, like over here. It still needs to be, I still need the contrast between the hair, which is going to be extremely dark, and the shadows, which although dark themselves will not be anywhere near as dark as the hair. And if you choose to take my advice and work from the lights to the darks and constantly layer up, then you're always protecting yourself from going too dark on the paper too quickly. What I'm going to do is, this here is too sharp, all of that is too sharp, and these almost look a bit too similar. I think we'll have a couple of strands barely visible, just disappearing there. That's fine, I'm happy with that. I think what we'll do before we finish, I think we'll add the colour into this section here. I think we'll do all of that black. This is actually a cable she's holding, which will be attached to the light eventually. Drawing in the area that I want to fill in. I always work in sections, just to make sure that I've got that reference line. I don't think that's going to show up, so let's just go straight in with the 3B. This needs to be really dark. There's going to be a few areas where we have some hair showing through. I think there, and a bit there as well. I will pretty much go across all of that, but I'll try and be a bit lighter here. I'll try and blend a bit less so that there's some of that lighter colour I can use to give the impression that the light is just picking up some of the hints of the hair on this side. And then it's just a case of going in and filling it in. Because this is black and we're going for the darkest possible colour we can achieve, you don't need to go in and build the layers up from the lighter colours. You can go in, as long as you're doing it lightly, because eventually what we're going to be using is the smudge stick. And we'll just start blending it in. And eventually, if we keep doing that over and over again, we'll get the dark colours that you see just here. We're still working in layers, but we're not going in fully the darkest we possibly can straight away. Now, while I've got a sharp point, I may as well come down and fill this line in. We actually want it to blend ever so slightly into that. Let's put that in now. That's where the neck ends. Shoulder creeps just behind. There we go. And we'll come down here as well. Once you've created that solid, or almost solid, black line, you can start to work against it and you can be a bit more confident in putting some more colour down. It's up to you which you use. You can use the brush or you can use the smudge stick. I switch between the two, to be honest. When blending the darkest colours together, you'll notice that you get a lot of the crumbling of the colour straight away. I just say just keep blowing it off whenever you can. Because what will happen is further down the page you'll start getting lines where the charcoal has just crumbled and fallen down. I don't work flat, I work on a raised easel. Now, although this is supposed to be a fairly contrasting line, it doesn't matter if it bleeds in just a little bit. Not everything in life is perfectly clean and crisp. It also depends what kind of style you're after as well. I'm going for as realistic as I can possibly go for with this. I'm sure you can already see that this is a lot darker than that, which means, you guessed it, we need to go in and darken this whole area up afterwards. But we can do that in a bit. Let's just get this colour in. Now, the only element of this where I do need a crisp line is this cable, because it's a man-made item, it's got a hard edge, it's not soft features of the face. So it is just best to keep going over that. And where we think the hair is going to be. I've done a previous hair tutorial. You can go and find it in the tutorials folder. What you want to do is leave a gap. Follow the hair, so make brush strokes or pencil marks in the direction of the hair. where you don't want there to be any visible hair lines, just fill it in the colour that is required, and then when you get to the hair, again, make the lines in the direction that you want. And if it needs to be black or darker, still following the same shapes. So the idea is that the hair's going up like this. And then what you can do is, you see I've left this here, it doesn't matter, that's going to be black, it's going to be completely filled in. I can hear my stomach rumbling. I need lunch. Always follow the direction of the hair, where possible. This will be a lot darker eventually, but for now, we need those shapes in. And you see, by following the actual direction of the hair, you've already started to create some subtle detail, which really won't show up, but it will give you the indication of the way the hair is flowing, which is all you need for now. You just need the indication of where it is. This all needs to be blended in. Work both ways if you want, both towards and away. That's another stark line there. Like that. And it also comes over the shoulder a bit. So where the neck meets the shoulder, we're actually going to be filling that in a little bit. The light's coming from this direction, the neck is causing a shadow. You'll see it looks quite messy at the moment, but eventually we'll tidy the whole thing up. Okay, so remember, don't go overboard too quickly, and keep getting the charcoal off the paper. Right. And you can start drawing the shapes in you need to for the hair as well. I'm really pleased with that, the way this is turning out. last bit of black. Let me just move the camera so you can see where I'm working on. There we go. So the light's coming from this direction. It's picking up a few of the curves in between the space of where essentially that area there, where it's hitting a chin or shoulder. Now, as it gets further away, the hair's curving away, which means the underneath will need a shadow as well. Might not be as dark as that, but it will have a shadow because it's curving away. Okay, back in with the brush. And follow the direction of the hair. These lighter areas still need to be quite dark. It is black hair after all. And what we can do is, I was going to go over this again with black, but I'm not going to now. I think that's dark enough. So what we do, sellotape. This has been pretty much used up, so we'll get a new bit. Create quite a long bit because you're going to overlay that and then use that to fully drag the pencil across to pick up the charcoal. Lay it over and just follow the hairline going up. It doesn't matter if you take too much off, it's not a problem. You can blend it back in. But the idea is you don't want all of the lines to look the same. So at the moment, they start and end in the same position, but we don't want that. The light's coming from this direction. There's going to be so what's the nearest point to the light? What's the nearest curve point? And we can see that by holding this here, where the light could actually hit, that's going to be the brightest area. And then you just blend the bottom areas out, and where they're further away, they should be a little lighter. It'll take a while, but you can smudge them out quite nicely. Same for the next strands of hair. So this is this one strand. Where is the light hitting the hair? Where it is able to hit the hair. So you imagine this line here is, that's where the light's able to hit. Lay it over. The lightest bit here, front, and then getting gradually lighter. And if you've taken too much off, just blend it back in. And if you want a starker line between the two, just put in the black. As I said before, and I've said many, many times with this technique, shading, layering, it is all about working as lightly as you can to start with and building the layers up. Even when you're working with the darkest of darks, still try and consider where that light is and where the light needs to be so that you can work with it later. If I'd have gone in this area as dark as that, I wouldn't have been able to pull the colour off. And I need to be able to pull the colour off to indicate where that hair is. And there might be a few stray hairs as well. never be worried. It doesn't always have to follow the rest of the hair. And also the darker shadows as well. So what we've done is we've created the very darks and the very lights, but this is all looking quite flat at the moment. So we want to bring some more of these shadows in where we naturally think they'll appear. So behind this really bright highlight, I think there should be one. And then you're just using the point of the smudge stick to, do you know what, I'm going to use one of the thinner ones that I've got. So really, really thin. And you can actually apply quite a bit of pressure. And you get these gorgeous, crisp lines. It does make an awful sound, but it's worth it. And I think that's about done. Let's just go back up here and just get these bits a tiny bit darker. Not about overdoing it, but it is about finding the balance. I thought, as I said before, when we put this in, we'd immediately notice that this was looking too grey, so just add more of the colour in. And you'll find you'll do this with the whole picture. You'll get to the end and you'll see it all completed, and you'll start going in and hammering more colour in where you feel it's needed, just because the balance of it doesn't feel right. But that's up to you. Right, one or two more areas. A bit darker on our eyebrow. That's the first job. Blend. Then as the shadow gets closer, as we've already spoken about, as the shadow gets closer to the object that's causing the shadow, you want it to get slightly darker. Remembering these small little details will help make your drawing look far more realistic, I feel anyway. So up here it's quite close and we can almost see individual strands of hairs. They're going to be a lot darker. I think it's going to be a bit darker here as well. I said I wasn't going to use the black, but feel we need it. It's the tiniest amount. Okay, I think we're going to call that a day. I hope you found these useful. I've tried to talk about as much as I'm doing as possible. I think I've spoken for about an hour and a half, so I hope I haven't bored you. As I say, in the coming weeks I'll be posting the time-lapse video of this, and also I'll be posting some shorter videos of some of the sketches that I've been doing as well. I've been experimenting with different styles and things, and I also think they'd make some really good live streams as well. So I look forward to seeing you then. Until next time, happy drawing and Merry Christmas. See you all soon.